Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of She Renovates. I want to welcome my business bestie, Louise Lucas, who is the founder and the CEO of the Property Education Company. And what Louise does is she helps people get finance. And the reason that she is with me today is she's also the diamond sponsor of the She Renovates 2023. So we are very grateful to you, Louise. That is an incredibly generous thing to do, and we are thrilled to have you as our diamond sponsor.
Thank you very much, Bernadette. But that's honestly, it's because we love working with your clients. We actually love it. They are great people and they're doing amazing things, and we love supporting them in their efforts. So please, it's mutual, really. We love them. And that we don't say that about all our clients. We do love yours.
Thanks so much. And the other thing I should say about Louise is she's the queen of the red lipstick. In fact, she's the queen of red, full stop, because it's her brand color. And also she is the queen of the gin trolley.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yes.
So every renovation needs a gin trolley. Come on.
Yes. And when Louise comes to retreat, she comes armed with the gin trolley under her arm. So, yes, I'll leave it to imagination how that goes. Yeah, but based in Melbourne, but looks after people all over the country. And she also has a special, I think, knack with getting money for first-time buyers. And you would have heard an episode that we did recently where Louise's son, Nick, bought his first property, and between them, they navigated his first renovation and added, was it about 150,000 after costs? Yeah. So amazing kickstart for his property journey. And so
it's a big win, and we appreciated your insights and help too.
No worries. Yes, it is a bit of a love fest here going on.
And I like dealing with smart people, Bernadette. So
awesome. Now, what we're going to be talking about today is really what's happening in terms of money, in terms of the market. And Louise has been telling me there have been some changes in lending policy that we need to know about. So, before I hand over to Louise, I think it's really important to note that if you are even if you're not challenged with getting money, it really is better to work through a broker, because they have a whole panel of lenders with a whole panel of products. And I was actually speaking to one of my Wonder Women the other day, and she was saying how the bank has told her that she's got to wait 6 months to get a loan because she's just got a new job. And I knew that was ridiculous. And I just sort of said to her, go to a broker, don't go to the bank, because, they've only got one product, one policy. So is that correct, Louise?
Yeah, and that is hit it on the nail, Bernadette, because banks do not have a best interest duty, whereas brokers do. So we are legislated to only work in your best interests. And obviously, we can find a lender who would lend to you one day in a new job.
That's amazing.
Imagine putting up with that nonsense from your own bank. It's shocking. And people get told, they come to me really sheepishly sometimes because they've been embarrassed. They've gone to the bank and the bank's gone, oh, no, there's no way I would lend to you because now you're maybe a single woman in your 50s and you're too old and you're this and you're that. And they're like, oh, my God, I'm so embarrassed about my situation. When, of course, they have no reason to be embarrassed. They are perfectly able and legitimately entitled to get finance, and they should be speaking to someone who will support them. And that's what we do. So I find that often the case. It's really tragic, Even people who have heaps of income and heaps of money and still find things difficult sometimes. So it's crazy. But
absolutely, yeah.
It just depends on different banks' policies or their appetite at the time. So you just need to be aware. We are getting constant updates. It's like relentless, the information that gets sent to us. So it changes every minute. oh, they're doing this. Oh, now they're doing that. So we've got a whole heap of things we're going to tell you about at the conference. We've got a huge which date are we meeting to do that, Bernadette?
The 16th of October.
Yeah, it's not very long. So, yeah. Okay. So, but today I just wanted to briefly talk about how the market's moving and how we've been looking at research from CoreLogic, and they were talking about that there was a big decline in prices. People who are thinking, oh, we're still waiting for the bottom. And the decline in prices from May 22 until February 23 was 9.1% nationally. But since the increase from September 2020 until May 22 was 28%, we're still up 15% from 2020. We're still over 15% nationally. So, but here's the concern: the market has rebounded over 3% in the last 3 months. So, if you were still waiting for things to come off, it's not happening. That point has turned, and that's how quick it was. And it always strikes me as amazing, people waiting for circumstances or a better time. But we are finding a lot more people buying at the moment, and they're getting the price they want. Vendors might still not be aware, but there's lots more coming on the market and they're moving. So that's great. It's really exciting at the moment. We know that migration has been this big driver for the increase again, despite interest rates putting us off. And the key thing is people, that's why Sydney's been the leader, of course. You'd know that, Bernadette, because most migrants end up there. But 33% of new migrants do arrive in Melbourne, but Melbourne is still a little more affordable, so we might still have a bit more room for growth. So it's probably worth having a look at some of the properties in Melbourne now. And while the regions were booming in COVID, and we know, and they had double the size of the boom during COVID compared with the capitals, but now capital cities are driving the growth with triple the growth of the regions. So the capital cities are where the action is at the moment. And what's really interesting is renovated properties are going really well, but unrenovated properties are going less well because people have been put off, as you would probably find, Bernadette, doing the building and renovating themselves. So this is a perfect time again for renovators to get in property because the ugly ones are not going. So if you've got... sorry, you want to comment on that?
It's really funny because I like to keep an eye on my local area just because I've got a few students around here. And I found this place that was, it was a renovator's delight, an absolute dive, and, smoke, cigarette stains all over it. And I mentioned it to a few of our students, and anyhow, none of them took it up. But yesterday I took one of those students through our Darley Street project because it's it's finished and it's very beautiful. And she said to me, now I get it. She said, when I looked at that, she said, I could not even fathom what you would do with it, but now I get it. So yeah, it's definitely a, multi-$1,000 skill to be able to, hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to, buy something that nobody else will look at because you get the best price then. And you're going to rip it out anyhow, so it doesn't matter really what it looks like.
No, I had years ago a client who bought sight unseen on a property in Ballarat that was smoke stained and smelt disgusting, and so she got it much, much cheaper because no one would buy it because it was stank. And all it took was, new curtains, new carpets, which cost, at the time relatively small. And you saved 30 or 40,000 on the property, and there was nothing like the cost to go in. So, it's amazing, really. You just got to show some, another client bought a place with a bedroom. The master bedroom was painted completely black, like all the walls, the ceiling, everything was black. So people you can paint, people, but no one wanted to touch it. So again, there's more and more of those opportunities out there, and agents were often help people get their places ready for sale, But, you know, they often lack imagination too. And when they come in, they'll often say, oh, don't bother renovating. You know, we'll just get the best price for it as it is, which suits us beautifully as purchasers of renovator, you know, potential properties. But anyway, they're saying also at CoreLogic, the top third of the market, where average houses are around 1.2 million. And this is like, you know, across the globe. So all across Australia, but anyway, and units around 800. So they're the top end of the top third of the market. While it's more volatile, they are leading the recovery in pricing at the moment and moving very quickly. So if you find something around the lower end of those prices and that needs a reno, then you're more likely to get the uplift that you're looking for. And the big worry has been, well, you know, with interest rates going and the big problem, you know, are people going to default? Well, there's very, very few homes across the country in negative equity because we've had this huge percentage of growth the last few years that this isn't causing people to have a big problem and not really causing, although there's been a small upturn in defaults, it's very low. All right. So that don't expecting, you know, mass people selling for cheap and whatever. It's just not happening. People are managing. What's happening in finance at the moment, it's fascinating because, oh, well, I think it's fascinating. Others might find it less so. But anyway.
They're with you, Louise.
The banks are wanting to make money. They've clearly had a downturn. And so many of the rules that were in place that were restricting lending over the last few years just to keep a lid on things are changing. So, well, look, I'll give you a full update at the conference on this October 16, I remember. But there's just a few things I want to talk about now. And like loan to value ratio limits are increasing with lots of lenders. So they're lending higher than they were before and although they're pricing higher, if you're doing a reno to make a profit and then maybe rent out, we can then revalue, get the loan to value ratio reduced again, which we've just done for a client who did a major reno. The valuation we got was like hundreds of thousands higher than when we actually originally started 12 months ago trying to get the reno through. And because it's so high, they've given us a much cheaper rate on the whole loan at the end of the reno. So it's worth, when you go and ask your banks for a better price on your property, make sure you actually ask them to get a valuation and maybe increase the valuation so your interest rate can come down because they are pricing on loan to value ratio. So it's the percentage of the loan against the property. So say you bought a property and now they're actually lending for some investments. Like previously, they were only going up to 90%, including lenders' mortgage insurance for investors. Now there's some of them, they're going up to 95 again. So what does that tell you? The banks actually think prices are going up as well. So that should be good news to anyone who's doing that. But I want you to make sure that when you go further along, you need to make sure you're revaluing your property every 6 months or 12 months, which we do for our clients, to try and get the interest rate down because your interest rates are very dependent on your loan to value ratio. I hope I made that clear. I think I was talking a bit, you know.
No, I got it. Yeah, okay. I got it.
Cool. So
and that's something I didn't know.
Well, it's really really become much more important in the last couple of years. They're very, very price conscious on security and risk for the bank. So one way to keep lending money but charge people for the privilege is to increase their interest rate on a higher loan to value ratio. So if we can get your LVR down, and as a result of you've done your reno, you might have borrowed at 90%. We can get your valuation post reno down to 70% loan to value ratio. Hello, much better interest rate. You know,
amazing.
So well worth doing. But anyway, that's just a touch of what's coming. So we'll talk again soon.
Beautiful. Well, I have noticed headlines. I know, like seriously, we shouldn't look at headlines, but saying that Sydney's going to go up another 15%. Like massive.
Yeah, that's massive. Yeah. Well, somehow it just won't surprise me because post-COVID, I know many of Melbourne particularly have been off travelling overseas desperately to get out of Victoria for post-COVID. But we know people are very positive about coming to this country, and why wouldn't you be? It's a great place to be.
It is. It is. And I see you're getting a new premier.
Well, anything's better than whatever, but we're not going to go into that, are we?
No. And so while we're at it, what have you heard about what's going on with Airbnb in Victoria? So,
well, he's charging a premium. Yes, and an extra $950 for most owners of Airbnb. So it's very detrimental. And okay, they go, well, you get it as a tax deduction from your, taxes, but you've still got to find the cash to pay it. And unfortunately, most of these properties, you're not making a huge amount on. So I suspect it might put people off going into Airbnb.
Don't think that's a bad thing, because I personally feel that Airbnb, it's not something you can be mediocre in. You've got to be all in or not. And I think a lot of people, and I certainly noticed that when we were doing our rounds, our tour on retreat, when we went and looked at a whole lot of Airbnbs in the Southern Highlands. By the time they paid their 20%, to their manager, they wouldn't have been, a lot of those properties, even the really beautiful ones, wouldn't have been getting any more than if they had them on long-term rental. So I do think people don't really look at things sort of critically. So I guess what I'm hoping will happen is the ones that really aren't putting the effort into it, get out of it. And leave the ones that really are doing an amazing job, because they're the ones that deserve to do well.
Yes. Well, I think you might be right. How's it going in New South Wales with the 6-month rule?
There are ways of circumventing that legally.
Okay.
So, and I can't really speak for anyone else, but I personally don't see that as an issue. But by the same token, I don't want to have lots of Airbnbs. I think that I think there's a lot to be had. Like, I have had lots of Airbnbs and have fallen into the mediocre category because I just could not manage them all to a level where you should. And so, I think
very significant success, Bernadette.
I have.
What you consider mediocre might not be what others do.
No, but I consciously made an effort to cut back, because I felt that you need the bandwidth to be able to do the job in a way that really produces outstanding results. And the minute that you have too much on your plate, it starts to slip. So I think that's an important thing to remember. I hear people with managing 40 or 50 projects or properties. I don't know how they do it. In fact, I don't think they do it very well. So
permanent property managers often have 100, 150 properties. So it's interesting.
Yeah, but a lot of them don't do much of a job either. So
true.
Yeah. So, but anyhow,
property management is a real skill, and you do need the right people doing it. No matter whether it's Airbnb or permanent, you need serious, You
do. You need people that are committed to service. That's the thing. And a lot of people that do Airbnb are not committed to service. Some of them leave big, long lists of rules for their guests. Nobody wants to go on holidays and have, this sort of stuff. So, but anyhow, that's that. Yeah. But otherwise, Sydney and New South Wales, I think, is tracking pretty well, really. So,
I'd agree.
Lots of opportunities, like you mentioned, like unrenovated properties are definitely the sweet spot as for renovators concerned. The really bad, dirty, stinky ones.
I'm
So
also seeing a lot more places on the market that are not styled, which I love seeing. Properties that people are not prepared to pay for styling. There was a stage in COVID where everything was styled, and you're sort of thinking, oh God, everyone's expecting that extra 10% on top because the property's styled, which they're not worth, because the minute you rip that furniture out, it doesn't look like it's, you know. But now I'm actually seeing lots of properties coming up that people are not paying for styling. So wow.
That's awesome. Yeah.
It does help.
It does. It's interesting. I got an email from Michelle this morning. Michelle Lewis?
Of course.
And she has just bought a property in Victor Harbour. She said she found it for a client, but the client just couldn't come at the renovation because it's in pretty bad way. They were wanting $600,000 for it, and the owners, and she got it for $450,000. And she reckons that the agent, she's pretty sure, had never been to the property.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, anyhow, so there you go. Very interesting. Well, so for those of you who are listening, please we'll include a link to the She Renovates 2023 event. Please go. We're running a competition at the moment, so you can win a ticket. So if you go to the landing page, you'll see a little button. Click on that. See if you can win a ticket first before you shell out money. And be prepared for an amazing day. So, of course, it is online. We'll be back live next year, but this year it's online. And what we've done, so we are experts at running online events. So we've got an amazing platform, which if you've been to one of our online conferences before, you would have experienced that, which really facilitates great networking. So let's say you want to have a conversation with Louise, Louise will have her own lounge. You'll be able to go to her lounge and have a chat with her about your financing needs. We've got the presentations in really short, punchy sections. So because nobody wants to be sitting at a desk watching an hour-long lecture on something. So very short and punchy, lots of before and after projects, and also lots of competitions. So those of you who love David's architectural services, you've got an opportunity to win a renovator concept session with him, which is worth up to $900. There's a cash prize, there's all sorts of, there's magazine subscriptions. So make sure that you come along. It's an amazing day. You'll meet and make amazing friends, and you'll learn a stack. So come along.
True, right.
Great. So thanks, Louise.
Well, thanks, Bernadette,
today. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Take care.
Love to catch up as always.